Hello, my name is Georgiana Oliarik, and I'm a curator at the Art Gallery of Ontario. And today, I would like to show you my Wieland. In 1971, Joyce Whelan had an exhibition at the National Gallery of Canada. And instead of doing the conventional, traditional exhibition catalog, where curators go on and on and on, instead, she took over a 1964 government publication on Canadian Arctic flora and made it her own. One of the things that has always impressed me about Joyce Wieland is her ability to disrupt. So when you open the book, instead of being able to read about the 340 species and major geographical areas in the Arctic, instead you get a traditional Inuit song, printed in Inuktitut. And then as you flip through the book, you realize that she has sewn things into it, and then she has pressed flowers into it, and at the very back, the one thing that feels like a real publication is in pink.
One of my favorite Joyce Wieland artworks is her O Canada quilt. Big puffy letters sing the national anthem. Each letter is backed in red cloth, like glowing hearts beating beneath the surface. It's the most squishable artwork in the Agnes Etherington Art Center's collection. You just want to give it a hug and a squeeze for all of its playful complicating of nationalisms, feminisms, so-called fine art and craft. The Old Canada Quilt was in Joyce Wieland's 1971 exhibition True Patriot Love at the National Gallery of Canada. From there, it hung for years, a local favorite in the Kingston, Ontario restaurant, Chez Piggy. It even took on new color in that heady environment of smoking cigarettes and talking over food. Joyce Wieland's O Canada Quilt continues to instigate conversations.
Hello, my name is Andrew Keir. I'm the head of exhibitions, collections, and programs at Museum London. And the artwork I want to talk to you today about is the drawing that Joyce Wieland made for the poster of her 1976 feature film, The Far Shore. Now, The Far Shore is considered one of her most atypical works. On the surface, it's a costume melodrama that pivots around a romantic triangle. And many of Wieland's peers and critics reacted quite negatively to the film. Especially when they compared it to the socially engaged and highly experimental films Wieland had been making up to that point. But I don't think that's fair. I think The Far Shore is a complex exploration of sincerity and irony that embeds a feminist ethics within the country's patriarchal art history. Simple as that. And I've been a fan of Joyce Wieland's for some time. When I was 18, I went out and got a tattoo of the iconic slogan that made Joyce Wieland famous and perfectly encapsulates the warring binaries in The Far Shore. La raison avant la passion. Reason over passion.
O Wieland, O Canada. Wieland's lithograph features markings of her mouth, made while she sang, so to speak, the national anthem in English. That seems straightforward enough. But has anyone out there tried to confirm the concordance between sound and image? I remember years ago standing in a gallery trying to reconcile words or syllables to those mouthings, but to no avail. Today I tried to mimic Wieland. I put on lipstick and planted my lip marks, albeit directly onto paper. It's my lipograph. You quickly become aware of how complex it is to lip the words, and even become more doubtful that absolute one-to-one mapping had occurred in Wieland's work. In the anthem version that inspired her, there are 63 words, but a full 5 additional marks in her print. So, was she basically just paying lip service to anthem jingoism? It would have been in character for her to engage in such subversion, to dissemble for subtle but powerful effect. And I have to think that today, 50 years on, considering the issues that continue to haunt Canadian society, is an approach that remains salient.
In the Robert McGaughin Gallery's collection, we have Joyce Wieland's Artist on Fire. This work was acquired in 1984 by Joan Murray, the curator at the time, when she visited the artist's studio with the intention of purchasing an artwork for the collection. Joyce Wieland personally selected this work to be added to the collection because of its importance to her. She describes at the time that she was painting it that she was filled with this burning passion for painting. And that's really what we're seeing here. It's a self-portrait of the artist on fire, standing at an easel with a painting on fire. This painting has so much going on with it, and there's so much to say about it, but I think the two most important things is this depiction of that energy between the artist and the artwork, that kind of creative energy. The other thing is that it's very much about politics of art, power, and sex.
Hello, I'm really excited to share with you a painting by Joyce Whelan entitled Celebration. The Montreal Museum of Art just very recently acquired this work, and it's a painting that comes from late in the artist's career. At the same time, I think its history might allow us to better understand perhaps where some of Wieland's quirkiness and sense of humor might come from. It was a painting made for the Pantages Theatre in Toronto, now called the Ed Mirvish Theatre, which has its roots in vaudeville in the 1920s. Its founder had come to Canada during the Klondike Gold Rush and actually went on to establish one of North America's most successful booking companies for vaudeville performers as well as for cinema. By coincidence, at the time, Wieland was learning about her own personal history, having been orphaned at a young age. And she discovered there were in fact 3 generations of vaudeville or circus artists and performers in the Wieland family. The painting celebrates these rich and converging histories, and the artist uses this almost saccharine palette to create a lively rhythm with these fantastic floating figures that bespeak the exuberant and I think expressly Canadian subject matter in which Wieland reveled. By the way, if you're wondering what it is framed behind me, these are intricately embroidered antique bibs. I'm recording in my kitchen, so I decided that Joyce Whelan might, or I hope would have approved of celebrating these beautiful objects made by women's hands.
Hi, I'm Cassandra Geddy of Museum London, and I'm here to talk today about the large colorful quilt by Joyce Wieland called Spring 137 Summerhill Avenue, which she produced during 1972 and 73. It's one of her well-known textile works, which is fresh, colorful, humorous, and injected new energy into a somewhat stuffy Canadian art history canon at the time. She was a cultural activist, and this is source material for today's craftivism. This work records the fact that in November 1971, she and her husband, Michael Snow, moved back to Toronto from New York. So this would have been made just a few months after they relocated. And it was a time of great personal and professional sense of empowerment for her. And I can't think of a better work to share with you today, especially from Museum London, as Joyce Wieland was friends with Greg Curnow and Jack Chambers of the regionalist movement, and she's thought in her work that she wanted to stress elements of the personal and regional with the national. And so enjoy, I hope you do.
Une œuvre de Joyce Wieland que j'aime beaucoup est Time Machine Series. Une forme circulaire flotte dans un abîme bleu clair. Les taches et les gouttes en jaune et rose font vers le bas de l'ovale. L'image évoque le corps féminin, le sang, la vie, la mort, la joie, la douleur. Est-ce que c'est une vue microscopique de l'ovulation, de la conception, ou plutôt est-ce qu'il s'agit d'un sujet cosmique, universel, la création de l'univers? Wieland a peint ce tableau dans son premier studio à elle-même. C'était dans le coach house de ses amis à Yorkville, un coin chic de Toronto. Enfin, elle était loin de la maison et loin des travaux ménagers, attendus d'une femme à l'époque. Enfin, elle a eu de l'espace pour bouger, pour danser et pour faire des tableaux énormes. Dans cette période de jeunesse, on peut voir son interprétation de l'abstraction, infusée de l'amour, de la féminité, du pouvoir féroce et de son esprit provocateur.
So one work that I think not too many people know about is a piece of public art called Défendez la Terre, Defend the Earth from 1972-73, and is actually commissioned by the National Science Library here in Ottawa. It's approximately 6 feet tall and 23 feet long, and it's a quilted assemblage. And the words Défendez la Terre, Defend the Earth, are written in these huge letters that are sort of wiggly, and it reminds me actually of flowing water. And the background is stitched and zoned like a topographical map. And there's sort of flower pillows that are on top of all this in delicate blues, purples, and pale turquoise. And I think those delicate colors and the textures of this piece speak to the fragility of the environment, which I think is also a very appropriate message for the function of the building and the people who are working in that building, where in the National Science Library, sciences can play a huge part in measuring and conserving the resources of Canada.
Hi everyone, Toby Bruce here from the Art Gallery of Hamilton. It's Joyce Whelan Day.
Okay, you want Wielands? We've got Wielands. In fact, we've got 7 Wielands on display right now in the gallery. But because this video can only be 1 minute long, I'm going to ascribe 1 word to each of the Wielands currently on display. And because it actually takes 1.7 seconds to say Joyce Wieland, I know, I timed it, we gotta move fast. 2 figures, 1955, and my word is complicated. Time Machine number 2, 1961. Reflexive. Northern Lights, 1961. My word is transcendent. It's also my favorite work of Wieland's in the collection. Oop, that's a lot of words. Sinking Liner, 1963. Filmic. March on Washington, 1963. Relevant. Homework, 1966. Inventive. The Spirit of Canada Suckles the French and English Beavers, 1971. Brilliant. Happy 90th birthday to the fairy godmother of feminist art in Canada.
One of the aspects of Joyce Wieland's work that's always stood out to me is actually her experimental film called Rat Life and Diet in North America from 1968. And it takes that kind of animal story or fable and really takes a political spin on it, for it shows us a group of rats who are held captive in the United States and by their cat jailer. And unfortunately, cats always get short shrift in these kinds of things, but there you have it. And these rats, managed to break free and escape to Canada, to a more peaceable or at least alternative land. And of course, 1968, the year it was made, is really significant. You had student protests all over the world. You had the rise of the New Left and lots of anti-Vietnam demonstrations. And so the rats reaching Canada and finding asylum there, is really kind of, it speaks to a lot of people who were against the war, and particularly men who were draft dodgers who could find safe haven here in Canada. And shortly after that, Wieland and her then husband, artist Michael Snow, returned to Canada because they felt they could no longer live and work in the United States amongst this war that they just simply didn't agree with.
And that really goes well with the piece that I want to talk about, which is actually Arctic Passion Cake from 1971. And 1971 was the year that they returned to Canada. And Joyce Whelan really took up this critique and pointed it towards Canadian nationalism. And this was particularly manifest in an exhibition. She was the first living female artist to have a solo exhibition at the National Gallery of Canada that year, called True Patriot Love. Sorry, I should have said my name is Catherine. And she had this beautiful cake sculpture called Arctic Passion Cake that was a site-specific piece in this show. The cake was the Arctic landscape made out of sugary icing, and it was almost 2 meters in diameter, and it really married her interest in pop art that she had picked up while living in New York, and looking at traditional female practices, and put it together and turned the Arctic, the symbol of our nation, into a consumable, sugary, sweet item, looking at how American pop culture could quickly gobble up sort of Canadian, and just pointing a critique at nationalism in general.
Hi there, I'm Adam Welch. I'm a curator at the National Gallery of Canada. And for my Wieland Pick, I've chosen a poster that advertised a film screening that was held at the Carnegie Museum of Art in Pittsburgh in 1972. Now, the screening included 3 films made by Wieland, all from the late 1960s: Cat Food, Rat Life and Diet in North America, and La Raison avant la Passion. And it seems, judging from correspondence at the Carnegie, that this selection was actually made by a really good friend of Wieland's, the experimental filmmaker Hollis Frampton, who lived in New York, where Wieland was living for most of the 1960s. The actual series was organized by the film coordinator at the Carnegie, Sally Dixon, and there's correspondence between Dixon and Wieland organizing their trip to Pittsburgh and suggesting some sites to see as well. Now, the actual poster is this great 2-color screen print in purple and kind of like an orangey red color, showing this very menacing looking cat. Cats, gerbils, other animals appear a lot in Wieland's film of this period, of this time, and in particular in Rat Life and Diet in North America, where cats and gerbils play out this kind of transnational war resistance narrative. You can see the film at the National Gallery of Canada when it reopens later this summer. It's on view in the Canadian and Indigenous galleries. Thanks so much. Bye.